I'm tired. I'm tired.
The Late Morning Program with Namarasa podcast.
Hare Krishna, you're listening to the Late Morning Program with the Namarasa, the number one Hare Krishna podcast in the world. I'm your host, Namarasa. I'm here. Where's Jaya Jagannath? He's having some technical issues. He'll be joining shortly. Today's the 100th episode. For those of you who do not know, it's been a long time. We started this podcast in 2018. It's been a number of years now, and 100 episodes later, here we are. So today is just going to be Jay Jagannath Prabhu asking me a bunch of questions about the podcast, basically interviewing me. He thought it'd be a good idea. He was actually the first guest on the podcast, believe it or not. First guest. It was in my living room it was in the kitchen of my apartment in 2018. I think my first son was in the womb at the time. And that was the first episode. And then now, 100 episodes later, we're having him on again. Just because I love talking to him. He always has great things to say, and he's an interviewer. He's an interviewer himself. So I think he's having a lot of technical issues. So maybe we should start off with people calling. How about that? Let's do that. How about we do that? Maybe that'll be fun. So if you want to call in and you want to talk to me and chastise me or praise me or give me any feedback, call this number right now. Let's see who calls in first. Call that number on the screen, 201-292-4222, and we will connect here on the podcast. And then we'll wait for Jay Jagannath to join because he's, I think he's in Michigan, so he's having some issues with his internet or something. But we have 34 people watching on all platforms. Pretty cool. All right, here's our first caller. Hare Krishna, you're on the Late Morning Program. Who is this?
This is Komala Kumari Devidasi.
Hey, Kumari, how's it going? You're the first caller.
It's good. I know, this is huge. This is better than anything I received Christmas morning.
What is up?
Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because this is your 100th episode, and this is a time of reflection. And I'm really curious because starting out a big project, I'm calling it a big project. It's the number one Hare Krishna podcast. Starting out a project like this can bring up so many doubts and fears, especially if you know that people are going to criticize or people are going to disagree with things. So I'm just curious to ask you, what were the things in the beginning that made you nervous or that kind of became limitations? And how did you overcome those? And what encouraged you to push on despite those doubts, if you had them?
Great question. I didn't start the podcast as something serious. I think it was more of like just a hobby and a fun thing. And as I went on, it became really like I started diving into more controversial, serious subject matter. And then, like, I think halfway through the podcast episodes, like halfway through 100, I was like, oh man, this is getting serious because people are actually like, I'm getting criticisms from people. I'm getting like, why are you doing this? This is wrong. Or you don't care about ISKCON and things like really serious accusations. So what kind of pushed me forward was hearing from devotees that I care about and that I appreciate their feedback, saying, hey, you're doing a really good thing no matter what. Like a really famous and respected devotee in our movement who I had on the podcast, he spoke to me half an hour after his podcast, basically saying, you have to continue this no matter what. You are doing something great, no matter how controversial it is. You got to continue doing this because people need to talk about these things. They're going to be talking about these things no matter what. It's not just, you're bringing them up. People are going to be talking about them anyways. So that gave me a lot of solace, and kind of spacing out the real controversial ones from the ones that are just like very inspirational, very directly Krishna conscious stories and journey of their their spiritual life, kind of really kept me going forward in doing this, and also making a goal. Like I wanted to hit that goal. I was like, oh, okay, let's just do 100 and then like regroup and see how to push forward. To be honest, to be really brutally honest, I'm like very tired of it, to be honest. Like I have to refine my love for it again. I'm looking forward to doing that in the upcoming months, where I'm going to take a break and just like rethink and regroup. And I was thinking to bring my wife on because she's really good, and have like a double person podcast. Maybe it would be fun, maybe better, maybe easier, or maybe harder in some ways because the kids, what do we do with them and things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there was it wasn't as serious going in.
Yeah. That gave me a couple of reflections.
Sure.
And I'm taking this all as my own kind of inspiration, because I have things that I want to start, and I get analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And so the things I'm taking away from what you said is, one, to start small without having big expectations.
Yeah.
Just let it be fun and let it be no pressure, and just start it. And then two, as you go, when things start getting bigger and getting scarier, stick to your truth, stick to what is inspiring for you, and also stick to those messages of guidance from people who are encouraging you. I think it's brave these days to speak what you believe is true, and then also to put yourself out there, knowing that we're fallible and knowing that we make mistakes, and saying, hey, I'm a human. I'm probably going to make mistakes in this process. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just being brave enough to let people see me do it.
Yeah.
And then kind of continuing on with that, and trusting that I'm doing work that's important. And then the third thing is letting it evolve and letting it change, which is what you said about, like, as it grows stale, letting it change, which I think is really inspiring, to kind of allow ourselves to reinvent ourselves in the process.
Definitely.
That's my takeaway.
Awesome. You added some.
Super cool.
Yeah, I think starting small is really important, and not having those expectations of likes or shares or whatever. Just like putting the content out there is so important, and being really steady with it. I think, not to toot my own horn, but something that what I felt like was really helpful for me was just like putting the episodes out there, like weekly, whatever it was. Like in the beginning, it was like monthly, I think twice a month or something. I started small, like, okay, twice a month, just gonna do it, even if it wasn't the most exciting person or that wasn't the most exciting topic. I just had them out there, and then that builds like real momentum, I think. Not even like in the spiritual sense, but in the material sense of like podcasting practicalities and building an audience and things like that. That's what I got from some people who I spoke to, was like, you just got to put the content out there no matter what. Even if you don't like the episode, whatever, just put it out there.
So what I'm hearing you say is, do your duty and don't be attached to the results.
Right. Karma Karste, right?
That's what I'm hearing.
Yep. Awesome.
I love it. Okay, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, Kumari. Thank you. It was nice. Yeah, it was nice talking to you. Haribol.
Haribol.
All right, there we go. For our next caller, call the number 201-292-4222 if you want to talk to me on the podcast. Jay Jagannath Prabhu's not on yet. He's still having difficulty connecting, but this is fun. We've been, having Kumari on, which is really nice. She's been on the podcast before. I think she's starting her own podcast, I'm pretty sure. That would be really fun. Some questions on YouTube. Do we have questions on YouTube? Let's see. Can we ask a question via YouTube? Yeah, go for it. Ronit Nai, if you have a question, I'll post it. But if you want to call as well, you can call that number. I wonder if anyone's watching from America, or is this all out of country? It's kind of nerve-wracking. You know who's going to call. All right, here we go. I hate it when I know who it is because it shows up on the caller ID. Hare Krishna, you were listening to Late Morning Program. Who's this?
Mukunda.
Hey, Mukunda, how's it going?
Yeah. Good.
What's up?
Just wanted to say hello and oh, I'm sorry. This is so weird because there's a delay from your live to me talking to you on the phone. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. You probably should go in another room or something.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So just wanted to see how your holidays are.
My holidays have been good. My in-laws are here, so it's been really nice hanging out with them, and just been relaxing and eating a lot, and yeah, it's been good holiday.
That's cool. I'll call in later. I just wanted to say hello.
Okay, thanks, Mukunda.
Haribol.
Haribol. All right, who's our next caller? All right, we have some comments here. Good idea to have this kind of episode. Congratulations. Greetings from Radhadesh. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. Shri Sundari. Thank you so much. Kamaniya says you have amazing in-laws. Thank you so much. All right, next caller. And again, someone else I know. Hare Krishna, who's this?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's Namarasa Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hey, Haribol, are we on the call?
We are on the. You're on the call. You're live.
We're live on the. Oh my God, live. I'm here driving with Ishan Prabhu. Haribol now.
Hey, Haribol, guys. How's it going?
We're doing good. We're just in the sunny New York. A nice sunny day. We're just driving down to the city. So we thought we'd stop by, say Haribol.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really have been appreciative of all of the podcasts you've been putting out, and it's just a real pleasure to see it, being so consistent and so informative, and so many interesting devotees and so many amazing perspectives. So it's been a real treat for us.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I know a lot goes into it, and it's a lot of dedication and time, and also you're a great host. So really appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks so much, Rasik Mohan Prabhu. If you don't know Rasik Mohan Prabhu, he has a project upstate, Bhakta Bandhav. Go check them out on social media. They're doing amazing things up there in upstate New York. They have a large property. They have many wonderful dedicated devotees there, beautiful deities. They're doing programs. Go check it out if you don't know.
I'm a guest friend as well.
Ishan, Hare Krishna.
Not just a good podcaster, a guest friend, a great devotee. Very nice stuff. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Mr. Ham and all the kids. Hope you guys are having a great holiday.
Thank you so much. Take care.
What are you looking forward to in the next year?
Oh, okay.
Got any,
Yeah. I'm gonna do some other creative projects. I don't know what exactly, but I kind of want to regroup and think about podcasting a little bit more, what I love about it, what I don't like about it, and try to move forward, even if it's a little bit of a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any keeping it confidential? Any teasers?
Well, one really exciting thing is that there's a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who lives in Mayapur, not on the ISKCON property, but somewhere else. Some devotees know him. He was 7 years old when he got Harinam from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Wow. He's still alive. And so I said, hey, can you go there with your phone? Can I talk to him? Can I interview him? And they're like, yeah, let's set it up. So that might be the coolest episode ever.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Does it speak English?
No, I don't think he speaks English, but I could have a translator and just talk to him.
I did some interviews of old Vaishnavas. I did an interview of a Baba, Ranga Baba. He was almost 100 when I interviewed him. It's
Really?
amazing to hear from the old sadhus. They have such a wealth of experience, but also just a different era, different time. So it's like speaking to someone from a different age almost.
Right.
Really nice.
Cool.
Well, that sounds nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
we
right.
won't hold you too long. But,
All right. Thanks,
appreciate
Rasik Mohan Prabhu. Take care. Haribol.
Haribol.
All right. If you want to call the number, 201-292-4222. All right, you have another caller. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Hare Krishna. Chintamani.
Hare Krishna.
Hello, I'm Prabhupada disciple.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mataji.
There's a delay. I'm confused.
Yeah, you'd probably have to go. You probably have to go into another room.
Okay, I'm a Srila Prabhupada disciple.
Okay.
I was initiated in 1969.
Oh wow.
And Srila Prabhupada sent me to Japan to open the temple. I was married to Sudama Maharaj. Well, he's a Maharaj after.
Oh right.
Sannyas.
Right.
So Bali Mardan and Sudama and I went to Kyoto and Tokyo in 1969. And then he took sannyas in 1972. And I went to Hong Kong, and then I went to, I helped open the first temple in Manila, in the Philippines.
Wow.
with Sudama Vipra Maharaj and Ramaharshan. And I heard that sometimes, I like your show. I'm kind of new to it.
Oh, thanks.
But I really like your show. In Detroit, Michigan, in a temple house. And I heard you say sometimes you have people that aren't so interesting. So I'm open if you ever want to learn about what it was like to open those two temples. I have quite a few interesting stories. Prabhupada came to Tokyo 2 times, and I got to cook for him. And
wow.
And Brahmananda came because the Krishna book was printed in Tokyo, and so Brahmananda came and brought the Krishna books to Prabhupada. So
cool. Thank you so much.
I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate hearing about your story very briefly, but that's amazing. I'm very in awe of all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada who made so many sacrifices that we don't know about. I mean, unfortunately, it's not possible for all the disciples of Prabhupada to share their stories, via the books or biographies. But whenever I do, I just have the utmost respect for your generation and what they did, pioneering this movement, or else I wouldn't have been here. My parents wouldn't have been here. It's we owe a debt to you and your generation. Thank you so much for calling.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Wow, that was great. Very nice. Thank you. If you're interested in talking again, call 201-292-4222 to talk to me. So Jaya Jagannath Prabhu is still having issues. So he's not going to be able to join just now. Who else do we have? Okay. About 50 people watching across the... I've never done an episode like this, but it's kind of fun. All right, here we go. The man himself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it clear?
It's clear, yeah.
All right, great. The camera isn't so good.
You could tilt it down a little.
It's on the Mac.
Yeah, that's good. That's fine.
All right, cool.
Awesome.
All right. Apologies, technical difficulties.
No, that's okay.
I'm basically old, so everything, as soon as the technology increases a little bit more, I become more and more obsolete.
Thanks for Joel,
I
Prabhu.
feel like my mom now. Oh,
So we took a bunch of calls already, which is really awesome.
what you covered?
So Kumari first called, and she asked me a few questions about like how did you like how did you work past certain like obstacles that you might have had, or how did you start and things. So I briefly said a few things, and then Rasik Mohan called. Him and Ishan just were like appreciating it. And then one Mataji from Detroit named Chintamani Devidasi, who's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, got initiated in like 1969 or something. I don't even know her. And she's like, I really like your show, and she was like, if you want me to come on and talk about like how we started a temple in Philippines, like I was like, whoa, cool. Anyway,
That means you have to continue after this 100th episode.
right? No, for sure, we have to continue, but just don't know what it's gonna look like exactly.
Okay. Well, let's get into that. Can I ask my questions?
Yes, please
I'm
go
supposed
for
to
it.
kick off the interview. I'm really sorry for being late, y'all. It's just being
No, don't worry about it. It's all right.
absolutely. We want to hear about what inspired you to first start a podcast. Practically before talking to you, I didn't even know what a podcast really was. I knew Joe Rogan had a podcast, but I didn't know what a podcast was.
Right.
And then you started talking to me about doing a podcast, and I didn't even know what that was. And so what was the inspiration for that?
So first of all, like to give respect to Joe Rogan, the Ishta Dave of all podcasters. I'm just kidding. Well, it first started out. I had an attraction to being a radio host since I was a kid. Like I love everything about like broadcasting and things like that. I thought it was so fascinating, and so that desire like came together with like talking to you, and at the like I think you were out over our house or something,
Yeah.
and we were just like talking about something, whether it was like an ISKCON issue or a philosophical issue or something, and I was like, someone should be recording this conversation. If people can watch this conversation, it would be so helpful. Like I could play the part of like the audience asking questions, but it's like all recorded and it's just a conversation. So then I started to think about it more, and I was like, why isn't anybody doing this? I could do this. Maybe let's try it. So I started like buying mics and mixers and things like that. And I have some like really old footage of like me testing out stuff. It's really hilarious. But I thought that using that technology paired with philosophy and subjects that we talk about, subjects that are important to us as devotees that we sometimes don't talk about, putting those things together could be a good idea. But that idea didn't come together until a number of episodes later. It was really as a joke first, like
What do you mean as a joke?
like we could just talk about funny things.
Oh, okay.
Like I was in that kind of like comic phase of like I was drawing comics and I was making lots of memes, and I was like, this could be an added thing to the whole funny Namras package.
Wait a minute. I was the first episode. That wasn't a joke to me.
Not a joke.
Seriously.
Yeah, not a joke per se, but like more like less serious than like then the later episode we did on like homosexuality or all these like plethora of other like controversial things that we talked about. It became more like, okay, and I got message from devotees like, this is really helpful. This is really helping me in my own Krishna consciousness and stuff. So I thought that then it became, I was like, oh, hold on a second. This is becoming a little bit more serious than I thought. Maybe I should put more thought into this, and maybe I should devote more time to this and continue doing it.
Right. I this was actually my last question, but since you're kind of touching on it now, I'm going to ask it now. When you started the podcast, it was kind of like a fun thing, kind of like a hobby. I think you intended it as like an extracurricular hobby that you would do when you have time. Especially, I think in the first 2 years of your podcast, you put out like 12 episodes or like a very small amount of episodes. Yes. So it was very much like a hobby that I'll do when I have extra time to do it. And now with your determination to finish 100 episodes this year, and congratulations, this is your 100th episode.
Thank you so
Now it
much.
seems like it's turned into like an actual offering where like an actual service to the community of devotees. So I'm kind of wanting to pick your mind, or maybe you can explain your thought process or your inner world from like hobby to service. Because even like honestly, I'm not gonna lie, Karuna Avatar and I, when we started our Arise podcast,
Yeah.
um, we were like very consistent every week, putting out an episode every week. And I remember saying to I'm like, we're about to catch up with Nam Ross in terms of output of episodes. And then suddenly you were just like, you just like took off running. And so we thought like maybe there was like a little bit of like competition spirit there. And he was like, I gotta up my game, up my ante. I'm not saying that was our thinking. But
Right.
it kind of transformed from hobby to like an actual, it seems like an actual service to the community. And I want to know how you see your podcast from beginning to what it is now.
Yeah. Devotees talk to me and are like, "You're doing a great service. We love the service you're doing." And using the word service, I don't. I'm really struggling to see it like that.
Why?
I don't know. It's because I feel like I think we might have spoken about this before, but like I feel like I started. This was my idea. Like when I think of service, I think like someone like you know gives you a service. Someone is like, okay, do this. This could be good for you or something. But when it's something that I made up and it was like my idea, then it's like I'm doing it for like a maybe doing it for a selfish reason. Like it's fun sometimes, it's interesting. So I'm I still have yet to develop this like
Mm.
this is my service. Like when I think of service, I'm thinking of like, okay, I'm taking care of my family, you know, all other things that I'm like that have been given to me to do.
I don't know if this is relevant to what you're saying, but I've heard something to the effect that leaders are not like, you can't just proclaim yourself a leader. You have to just demonstrate leadership, and then people kind of gravitate around that.
Right.
Or using our language and like Gaudiya Vaishnavism in relationship to the guru, we say that the guru is self-evident, right?
Mm,
He's self-effulgent and self-evident. So if you
right.
walk into the room talking about, "Hey, everyone, I'm the guru," no, man, you're supposed to be self-effulgent. If you got to like proclaim yourself the guru, then it takes away from the self-evidence or self-effulgence of it. So could it be the case that what started off as something that you just were doing as a hobby can transform to an offering that could be made because of the circumstances? Like
Yeah.
someone had to stand up and do something, and you're the one who did it, and so
Right.
now it becomes like a service to the community. And they're kind of, in one sense, if they're calling it as a service, is it not evidence enough that that's what it is, at least as
Yeah.
far as what it's being received?
Yeah. I'm developing a service attitude towards this service, you could say. Um, I want to develop it even more in my mind just so I can take it more seriously and because I can stop my service like after 100 episodes. I'm like, all right, that's it. Like my service.
That was your original objective. It seems like, at least when you told me that you were going to do 100, he was like, I'm going to do 100 episodes and then I quit because there's
Mm,
too much pressure. I have
yes.
family obligations, and I'm going to just quit.
Yeah.
And I remember it's being like, no, you can't do that. This is too important now. So do you still feel the same way, having achieved this goal of 100 episodes?
I do want to continue because there's still a few guests that I really like to have on.
Mm.
So I don't want to end it, but I do want to regroup and re-find my love for the podcast. Like when I was in like my 50th episode and I was just like cranking them out, that was fun. It was exciting, and I was like doing it. Now, like I'm on like in the 90s, and then now last one, it's like I'm like okay, like let's take a break. It's like it's like very it's been very tiring in some ways, in a lot of ways actually. Just scheduling, practicality wise, it's been hard.
Let's hear about that. I have that as one of
Yeah,
the questions on here. Like, what challenges have you experienced in conducting the podcast? As
sure.
a person who I did a podcast in 2020 with Kishore Chandra called Chit Chat, and we did
That's
every
good.
day for like, I don't know, almost a year. And then I have the Arise podcast, and I know some of the challenges that come up are just like internal. Like you're going through like the vicissitudes of life, and emotionally you could be like often with me, I'm like feeling like depressed. I'm just like, don't want to do it. I'm not there. And then you got to show up for the podcast. It's like very demanding. It seems like it's just like talking. How difficult can it be?
Yeah.
But when the inner world is like shifting, the outer world is like all over the place, and it
Yes.
becomes like a real burden. I know practically in 2020, everyone was starting a podcast. Like, I was like, okay, let's start a podcast. And we got to stay inside. But hardly anyone was able to keep it up because there's just so many challenges in doing so. I'm just speaking to one of the challenges. But
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges that you're meeting? Because I think a lot of the criticisms that can also come because people don't appreciate how challenging it is to keep up a podcast.
There are a number of challenges. One of them was, well, some of them were very purely practical.
Right.
Big shout out to my wife for being incredibly supportive. Every weekend, sometimes twice in a weekend, like out, 4 hours, 2
Right.
hours, or 6 hours, even 3 hours sometimes at a time. While in the weekend I'm supposed to be helping with the kids and stuff.
Right.
So she's been very supportive. She's been very supportive in the sense of also like, no, you should continue doing this. This is really helpful. This is really good. But it's like, I need to help her. I need to spend more time with my kids. I need to do all that stuff. So that was a challenge. And also another practical challenge was like when you have certain guests, they're not in the same time zone as you. Like
Right.
I recorded a bunch of podcasts like 5 in the morning, 5 to 7 o'clock in the morning, and then put them out, or do it late at night, like
Right.
9 o'clock to 11, So that was a challenge in many ways. And then criticism wise, also it was a
Right.
challenge. When I did those kind of controversial episodes, whether it was about what, and or about female diction guru, that one was an interesting one because it was like people were criticizing, like, why are you having men come on to talk about female issues and stuff?
Right.
And I had to kind of like read all the comments and see if I was going to reply or not reply. And then that time when I came to you and I was like, I want to quit this because I can't deal with this anymore. It's like too
Right.
much.
Right.
Like I remember how I was thinking. I was like, why do I have to be the martyr to kind of bring out all these topics and like have it weigh on my mind so much? Well, I could just be like carefree and not have to bring it out to the public and just do my own thing and stuff like that.
How did you get through the criticisms? Because the internet is not a place that's inclined towards benevolence. And that's obviously true for the secular world.
Yeah.
But if 2020 taught me anything, it's also true for our devotional community. We don't seem particularly inclined towards benevolence, at least when it comes to like articulating our feelings. People can write whole essays,
Yeah.
giving quote constructive criticism. I'm like, where's the constructive appreciation? Like, I know this is hard to deal with. And I know I heard the critique about you that you weren't good at accepting constructive criticism.
Right.
And it's like, well, it's okay when it's like 1 or 2 people that I'm confident care about me. But when it's like 20 people, 30 people, 40 people offering constructive criticism, you can become buried under a cloud of just like sadness because of that. So I'm kind of curious about that particular element of struggle with the podcast. And as far as your experience has been concerned, like the ratio of critique versus appreciation. So how did you deal with that, particularly the criticism part?
Yeah, I think the criticism was very difficult to deal with in the beginning because it was coming from it was a very harsh in some ways. Like one devotee told me, like, you think he might have wrote a comment like, I don't even know how much you actually care about ISKCON or something. Like, do you even care about this society or anything? And I was just so hurt by that. Like, I don't think anything I can do like can warrant someone to say that to
Right.
me. Or in some ways, maybe that's a perspective, but like it was hard. But then I kind of started developing a certain tough skin as time went on, and that developing of tough skin came from devotees who I appreciate saying, "Hey, don't listen to the criticism. Just continue going forward. Continue doing this. And in your heart, if you feel like it's the right thing to do, then go forward and do that. And you learn on the way and you'll make mistakes. I made mistakes on the way for sure.
Right.
I'm not a perfect person. I don't feel like I did everything perfectly or made all the perfect choices or anything. But as time, I am who I am. This is my offering. This is my podcast, and this is how I'm choosing to express it. So another thing was trying to separate my own feelings and my own like opinions from what's being said sometimes was also a difficult challenge, and kind of I got criticism from that too, like, hey, just because you're like that, you want to platform a certain person or certain thing, like, yeah, or I want to kind of even the playing ground a little, because I see in our society that only a certain things being said, and so I want to echo, or I want to amplify a certain other opinion.
Right.
So
Was there any criticism that you found actually constructive and that you like took to heart and it kind
yeah,
of
for
changed your
sure.
perspective? Can you recall any? By
One Prabhupada disciple on the comments, this is what I remember, was like, why don't you wear tilak? This is the number one Hare Krishna podcast. You should wear tilak. And I was like, that's true, Prabhu. You're right. Every episode since that episode, I've been wearing tilak.
Dude, you could have warned me. I would have put on some tea live.
But other criticism that I took to heart was recently someone told me, like, don't hide your opinions on the podcast, which I'm still trying to deal with, because journalism, like, you're not supposed to, like, it's not an opinion piece, right? It's like I'm just bringing people on and hearing them out and kind of reflecting what they're saying and things, like, so I shouldn't bring all my opinions on, because then it becomes like Namras's opinion podcast, which is not, it's interesting in some ways, but it's also, it takes away from the guest perhaps, or the subject matter in some ways.
Okay. Do you think it could be helpful to share more of your opinion just for dialectical purposes? I mean, one thing that I've observed and I think is true is that our generation it seems like we're not very good at dialectics. And the way I think of dialectics is like debate is like you're trying to conquer over the other person, practically by any means necessary, at least as far as it seems to have deteriorated. But dialectic is like you have two opinions that are like at polar opposites, and they're clashing for the purpose of coming to something that's true. So it's less about like conquering over the other person and more about what is the truth of the matter. And we're literally on polar opposites, and we're going to clash, not for the purpose of conquest, but for the purpose of illumination. Like we just want to understand what is the truth. And so in that context, do you think sharing your opinions more could be helpful for creating that dialectical sort of space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the most articulate person when it comes to like articulating ideas and things, but I can like extract things. So I've never, like, I was legit nervous when for you interviewing me. I was just like, why am I so nervous? Why am I like breathing heavier and shaking and stuff? Like, this is crazy. This is my 100th podcast. I've done 100 podcasts. Like, I should be scared of doing this. But for some reason, talking about myself and kind of developing my own ideas and articulating my thoughts and things, it's like a challenge for me. But it's less of a challenge when I'm like reflecting what someone's saying, or asking questions, or extracting information from someone, or interviewing someone else. So I think it is important. Maybe in the future I will do ones that I have, a certain say in, and or a certain subject matter. But I'm not so about that, to be honest. Like, I like to keep myself kind of out of it. And also, you can just get in trouble really easily. I have very strong opinions about things, and if I just not fully bring myself out there, but I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't want to fully open up myself.
Anyway, I could say personally, I found your style of presentation very, very like for the variety of people out there who will be hearing you, I found your vibration and your tone and your presentation to be very welcoming to all sorts of people, because particularly because you don't appear to be extremely opinionated, or you're at least you're not sharing your strong opinions about things. You're kind of just like reflecting. And also, honestly, the lack of, I mean, this is your own words, but your lack in being able to articulate things and I think that makes it easier to hear from you, actually. Because you look like a person who's like, well, he doesn't really know what's going on. Maybe he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Or, okay, we know he has strong opinions, but it's not really clear in his head.
It's probably true.
It's maybe partially true. So if someone can like just convince him, so that makes it easier to kind of like want to hear from you. Like, because it's basically, if you were more articulate, then we would probably feel that you have some agenda. And that's some undercurrent there that would make it harder for us to be, embracing of your podcast. So I actually found that to be one of your particular strengths in presentation. Actually.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You always been an advocate. Thank you. Appreciate that a lot.
Okay, I had this other question. How do you understand the impact of your podcast on the devotional community? I think I came up with this question in regards to the fact that you've had devotees from several sanghas on your podcast, like Sri Chaitanya Sangha with Tripurari Swami, Bhaktabandhav Sangha, sort of the Gaudiya Math feel. I think the only thing you haven't had on yet is like Satyanarayan, something sort of very controversial. So you've seen it like be kind of, your podcast seemed to be a space of like bridging gaps between sort of sanghas. At least it kind of started to speak to me in that particular way. How do you envision the impact? Like, how do you think the impact of your podcast has been on the community as a whole?
I think I've seen like a lot of devotees who might have seen me or felt suspicious towards me after having certain devotees on. They just like opened their hearts to me.
Wow.
Like devotees in other sanghas, like, okay, this guy's an ISKCON guy. Like, I'm an ISKCON initiated devotee, but I'm open to hearing all devotees, no matter if you're ISKCON or not, to come on the podcast. And like when I had Rasik Mohan on, when I had Jadurani Mataji on, their whole sangha was like, this guy's one of us now. Hey, what are you guys too? We're all the same. So I think what happens is it's kind of like blurring the lines between the sanghas in a good way.
Okay.
Like just to show that, okay, we might not be in the same institution, but we're all cousins. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all part of the Chaitanya tree. And we can have a conversation with each other without it being like, you're coming to my temple and taking devotees, or I'm coming to your temple to criticize your guru, or things like stupid things like that, which were concerns in the 90s and things like that. But I don't think there's a concern anymore, to be honest. I think we need to stop.
Well, I don't know. I think there might be some concern from, at least you've gotten a lot of feedback from previous generations devotees about your invitation of devotees from different sanghas. Not all the way across the board, but with certain guests, you've certainly gotten pushback from previous generation devotees.
Yeah, totally.
While you're inviting those sorts of devotees onto your platform.
Yeah.
What do you say about that? What do you hear when you hear that pushback? Do you hear like wisdom, or do you hear like a previous generation sort of issue?
To be brutally honest, I do hear it as a previous generation issue.
You don't see the wisdom in that?
No, I don't.
Can you elaborate?
When certain, when devotees have a certain, me too, when our upbringing is a certain way,
right,
and we have certain experiences as devotees, those experiences come with us and stay with us for the rest of our lives. And when someone is doing something different that's against or is kind of offensive of that experience, then we might push back on that, which I did get pushback from. But that's not my experience. That's your experience.
Mm.
You know, that's not my experience. So
Right.
don't push your experience on me. I'm a grown man. I'm a grown ass man. Sorry to say that. I can have my own experience of Krishna consciousness and dealing with other devotees from other institutions and sanghas. Like
Right.
let me create my own experience of them.
Mm.
Don't tell me how to experience it.
Mm.
And that might be just my personality too. I'm like I don't know. I'm lately I've been kind of like anti-establishment in some ways. That's coming out maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm like not against anybody, but
Right.
I feel like, you know, I really loved Mother Urmila's episode of when she came on and she talked about how centralization is like the enemy of, can't remember exactly. I don't want to misrepresent it, but she was like saying centralization is like not what Prabhupada wanted. Like
Mm.
when it's too centralized and too controlled, like
Mhm.
it has to be a little bit like hands off, like let things develop organically and things like that. I don't know. I probably sound like super arrogant right now, but
No, I if I can reflect a little bit on this also,
yeah,
I feel like every generation of devotees will have to discover their own mission and contribution to the greater Gaudiya Sampradaya. So,
yeah,
like with the first generation of ISKCON devotees, like Prabhupada disciples, they had a particular mission. You know, they were getting the movement started, and certain things were required to solidify that. And that was kind of like their contribution to the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And now we're like the next generation, like children who have to like come into our own and come to discover what will be our particular mission, our particular contribution to the greater family. And that contribution is going to be in some ways distinct from the previous contribution necessarily, especially in the sense that we're not starting a new movement, but we're going to be having to hold the responsibility of carrying it forward. So our mission and our contribution is going to look different. And I don't know exactly what that is. I think we have to come. We're not going to come to discover it by cogitation, but we have to like actually live it out and make mistakes and come to discover what that contribution is finally going to be. But in my head, what I'm observing amongst our generation of devotees and what I'm going to suggest might be our contribution is kind of like healing. And I know this word's going to sound like super new agey and cringy, and I don't mean it that way. I'm definitely not into that. But kind of like the healing of schisms, like the healing of schisms, not only between sanghas, but I've noticed another trend amongst devotees is like they're kind of getting to like the psychology, spirituality connection, like Enneagram, and people kind of wanting to bridge that schism between like their emotional world and then like their spiritual life. Or with the Arise podcast, we're talking a lot about sexuality and the spirituality of kind of healing that schism. I feel like our generation's got a lot of healing to do, you know, from the things that have come up or emerged from the previous generation. So our mission is going to be different. And so
totally.
I feel like your podcast kind of represents a small, it's like a symbol of that work that's probably going to be the work of the broader generation. And I don't think that's proud. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
were
Thank you.
okay. Another question I have here before we get into some specific episodes. Okay, I kind of already asked this question. So yeah, let's get into this. So what were some of your favorite episodes and why? Everyone, I sent these questions to Namarasa before we did the episode, so he had time to reflect on these things. It's not all.
I wrote a few things down like half an hour before. I liked some the episodes that stand out to me were Achuta Bhava's first episode about ayahuasca and
Okay.
his like whole journey in Krishna consciousness. It was just so fascinating, and he's so articulate, and he's so like easy to talk to. It was just so fun to listen to the episode and just be there with him. Not even like that there was cameras and there's mics and things, but just like really focusing and hearing what this devotee is saying and just like feeling his journey. I really got into it. Like I felt like I was there with him and he was like describing it. And that was just it was just like a really raw and amazing episode, and and it just like it left an impression on me. Like, wow, this devotee had like a really amazing experience, and I was so glad to be able to like bring that to other devotees to hear, and I personally got so much from it. Um, I liked Jadurani Mataji's both podcasts. Like just talking to her is just, it's like, she's like a relic in in our movement.
Yeah,
Like she was
absolutely.
there from like the very beginning, and just to like talk to her and for like that long, it was just I was just so honored, and like I was amongst like some really amazing sage, and she was just like speaking her wisdom and her and she was very like talking to me like very in a friendly way, and she had no like sense of like, oh, I'm the most senior person in this whole Krishna consciousness movement practically, like, and I'm just like a nobody dude, like. So that was so amazing. Her Vaisheshika Prabhu was so awesome to talk to. Also, always when I talk to him, I'm always just like, I feel so pure and I feel so cleansed, and like even through the computer, it came through his personality and everything. And it was about book distribution and stuff. Padmanabh Swami, always awesome to talk to him. Just the way he articulates Krishna consciousness. So I guess the theme would be that devotees that I admire their Krishna consciousness a lot. When I speak to them, I feel just very I feel very Krishna conscious, and I feel that those are my favorite episodes because after I'm done, after the computer's off, I feel like let's chant, let's read, let's do some kirtan, or like how you're supposed to feel when you're in sangha with a devotee. Those have been my favorite ones, and there have been ones where which I really like, that were controversial, had a large impact. Hearing it later, like your episode about homosexuality, that was a hit.
Yeah.
Devotees still to this day message me about like, hey, that was a great episode. GBC members like messaging me like about other things, but then they start out with like, hey, that was a great episode, or they message me like, hey, can you send me the link for that episode? Because some other senior devotee told me about it. And hey, they're like, hey, you should listen to this. So I think the Krishna conscious, really deeply senior devotees that I've heard from, and also the friends that I've heard from, like yourself, Achyuta Bhava, and other devotees whose experiences that came out in the episodes in a really beautiful and deep way, and that have had lasting like ripple effects even to this day.
Right.
It's been really, really nice.
Now, there's been some ripple effects with the controversial topics that you've had on, and I have some questions about that. Just not very getting the details, but you've had controversial episodes in both the sort of like sociological, aspect or category, and also like a theological category. And I kind of want to hear, I want to hear your experience about that. But I guess the first question I want to ask in this regard is that with certain issues, especially when it came to like social issues, you have one like, okay, the homosexuality one, the Black Lives Matter one, the vaccine one. You did one with
you said the word. We're gonna have a fact checker at the bottom of this now. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. You just said poke.
Oh my God. And then you had an interesting episode with Garangi Devi, was it? And it was about like what it sounded like a whole bunch of conspiracy theories, but Srila Prabhupada.
Govinda Dasi.
Yeah, Govinda Dasi. Yeah, Govinda Dasi.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So you've had a lot of voices on your episode on your platform, and I'm sure you've gotten the criticism that you have to be responsible about who you're platforming, because you're giving voice to misinformation. You're giving voice to a dangerous idea. That that's one thing that I hear a lot of. If you hear this side of thing, that's dangerous, and so you shouldn't be platforming such things. And you have a responsibility now to platform only certain voices, and to how do you hear those sorts of things? Like, how do you see your responsibility in this regard?
I struggled a lot with all those. I think after every episode that I did like that, I was like, I had to like sit down and like think, and I got lots of messages from people, critical messages,
Mm.
supportive messages. Nothing too crazy, to be honest,
Okay.
because I don't know. I tried to come off a little bit neutral in some ways, but the vaccine one was, I did 2 of them. I think even 3 of them. There was, like, Prahlad and Andaswamy, which got banned on YouTube, like, they took it off. They gave me a strike. Then
Right.
there was the Sitapati one. That was the one where, it was in reaction to different devotees saying that, why it was the right choice for me writing those articles and things.
Right.
And then I think I did another one with Sitapati.
Right.
So it you know, I just wanted to kind of level out the playing ground in the sense of just we were hearing so much of one side of this whole thing from
Mm.
devotees and
Mm.
from the official stances and things like that.
Right.
So I wanted to just give the other side of the opinion, even if it was my opinion or not. Like I
Mm.
still would have tried to do that, and it wasn't offensive to anybody. Like, I
Right.
don't think it was offensive. I personally feel like I have a gauge of like, okay, when I'm going too far.
Mm.
And I think it wasn't too far. I think now we see, it's been months and months since then. Like now even more has been coming out about this whole thing.
Right.
Like
Why did you feel it
much-
important to, as using your language, to level the playing field? What that particular topic, since you're zooming in on that one?
yeah, I mean, because I guess a part of me was involved in it. A part of my opinion was in it. Like,
Mm.
hey, okay, I might not think that way, but um yeah, I guess I did follow my own opinion in that way. Like, hey, this
Mm.
needs to be said too. What about this and what about that? Or
Mm.
devotees, like really respected devotees, like Prahlad Swami.
Right.
He was being silenced.
Right.
He was being silenced. His whole health minister role was taken away because he didn't have the same opinion as the other devotees. Like
Right.
that in itself was just like, give this Prabhu a platform. Like,
Right.
give this Maharaj a platform. Nam, you have the platform to do that. So why not do that? So I did, and that was like that was one of the most popular episodes. Devotees really
That
like that.
episode was awesome. I loved it. So that's not neither here nor there. Everyone's, of course, I loved it. But
Right.
do you feel that what about the critique that about the responsibility? Do you feel like there was any like level of irresponsibleness and sharing certain things that caused great confusion for devotees? And then this question is going to come up also when about in the realm of the theological field, because you got this criticism by having such conversations in the open. It also caused like a mass confusion, and bewilderment that may have not been there before.
I don't think it's irresponsible
Mm.
to challenge someone's own faith in something,
Mm.
whether it's about the jab or whether it's about bhakti's inherency,
Mm.
whatever. I think it's healthy if people are challenged
Mm.
in whatever their thinking is. I was challenged, and I tried to work through it by bringing certain devotees on or talking about it with other devotees offline or whatever. So I don't think it's irresponsible.
Mm.
I don't think it's irresponsible because um it's a part of people becoming more like wholesome and people understanding what their own position is like in the whole thing.
Mm.
I did get criticism with the bhakti's inherency thing a lot.
Okay. So yeah, that's same sort of question, but in regards to that, because you did a fall of the Jiva one, which
Yeah.
kind of it seemed like it opened up an old wound, that old '90s wound.
Like
Oh,
the
oh
scab,
man,
that old
oh
90s
man, we
scab. Like,
returned to the
I just
ghetto
fixed
of the
it.
'90s,
Yeah.
and then right after, well, not right after, but soon after, you did the Bhakti Inherence one, and that just added like a whole nother layer of bewilderment. And I remember devotees messaging me
Yeah.
about those episodes saying that, I'm completely bewildered. How could this Prabhu, platform this? This is doing harm to our faith. This is doing harm to our society. And you were getting that not only from like, the new kid on the block, but you were getting that from quite senior people also.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of what's going on there? What was going on for Nam in that sort of situation? The
I
back
was,
and forth messaging from this one and that one and the
I
other one.
mean, Jay, you were such a big support to me through that whole thing. Every single day, for those of you who don't know, I was messaging Jay every day, practically like, what do I do? This person said this, and this person said that, and they're telling me that I'm doing like this, like working out how I thought about it, or working out my motivations. Was I, really out to make people confused or hurt someone's faith? That wasn't my motivation. That wasn't the motivation of the person who was coming on to talk about these things. It was just the more time went on, the more I was like, obviously these things need to be talked about and talked out, because people still have a certain thing about like, okay, you're not supposed to go there, or you're not supposed to say that, or you're not, like, yeah, I understand. Something really interesting is that Pradumna Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor, he's a regular listener for the podcast.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? He messages me about certain things, and he was saying, what do you expect when you talk about like philosophical issues in a big platform like this? You're going to have people who don't understand, or who feel like their faith has been who need to defend their faith, or who need to, you're going to have all kinds of
Right.
you're going to have all kinds of reactions. You should be okay with that. That's just how it is. And that brought me some solace and things. And
I mean, I bet, because Pradumna, I mean, I live with him, so Pradumna Prabhu is very reserved about who he talks to.
right.
So for him,
Right.
to still,
Yeah. Like I lived with him for 2 years in when I was at the Bhakti Center, and like I don't think he ever talked to me like maybe once.
so for him to come out of his sort of introvertedness to share that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is saying a lot. I really appreciate him, and he's like another very historical person that I really, I'm like so, like a celebrity in my eyes,
Right, so,
But to answer your question, what was going on in my mind was a lot of turmoil. A lot of turmoil. Like, am I doing the right thing or not? But then as time went on, I realized, yes, this is the right thing. And also hearing from that sadhu who came on the podcast, who's a very respectable person, and he was saying, don't stop doing this, no matter how controversial it is. Don't stop doing
right,
this.
right.
And that really helped me a lot.
Right. Do you think, because I've heard this critique about your invitation, and it does sometimes come off as this, like when you did the episode, Vaishnav controversies, follow the Jiva Bhakti inherence. I guess just seeing it from the Facebook, for example, seeing it from online, it strikes a viewer as somewhat naive. Like you don't know what you're stepping into. You're just thinking like, maybe it's clickbait. Someone may think like that, or even if it's not clickbait, they can think that you're very genuinely wanting to talk about a particular subject matter, but you haven't really thought about the implications of putting it out in the public like that. And so you're kind of just naively stepping into a particular subject matter without considering deeply the implications it's going to have. And so I guess this might be a fair question that someone would have for you. Did you, with that particular episode, were you thinking deeply, or was it just like, this would be a cool topic and it was kind of naive? And if so, has it made you reflect how you need to be a little bit more considerate in the future about certain topics, and that maybe you need to reflect a little bit more and think more deeply about the implications it's going to have? Like, does any of this strike you in any way?
Totally valid concern. Totally valid concern. I had a message from a guy who had just, not a message. He wrote a long comment. He had just started maybe a little few years ago, and he listened to one of the episodes, and he was totally in turmoil. That episode wasn't for him.
Right.
And that's my mistake. Putting it all out there, like, everyone listen to this? No, it shouldn't have been like that.
Mm.
I think he thought that it was an ISKCON podcast. It's not an ISKCON podcast. It's a Hare Krishna podcast. ISKCON's not the only Hare Krishnas in this world, believe it or not. There's a lot of other devotees, and so I very purposely called it the number one Hare Krishna podcast because I wanted to bring all kinds of people on, not just ISKCON people, even though it's a majority of ISKCON people. But yeah, I take that as a takeaway to think about more deeply in the future. Although Fall of the Jiva, I mean, who still thinks we fell? I mean, come on. Do people still think that? I'm just kidding. I think that I think I was a little naive in that way, for sure. I was. I'll admit it.
Mm.
But I wouldn't. I don't regret doing the episode.
Mm.
I loved it, and I think it made people think. Like, it made people think, go back to wherever and be like, okay, let's look into this deeper. Let's study this a little bit more. Prabhupada said both things. How do we harmonize that?
Mm.
He said both things.
Right.
Whether it's about inherency or fall of the jiva, it says he said both things. So how are you going to harmonize those things?
Right.
If nothing else, people are starting to think more deeply. People are starting to question a little bit more. Hopefully not in a very challenging way that makes them go away, but in a way like, okay, well, I'm not just going to follow things superficially or just do what I'm told or think what I'm told, but let's read a little bit more. Let's ask the better questions.
Right.
Let's approach people who can answer those questions in a more satisfactory way.
Right. I had a question, and this was kind of related to something earlier. You've had, aside from senior devotees in the ISKCON Sangha reach out to you, you've had the GBC reach out to you on several occasions with some of your episodes with concern.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say which particular episodes but I remember you sharing some of the letters with me. Not the letters, but you just told me this thing. The GBC reaching out. I mean, that seems like that's a huge impact when you have the governing body commission of a huge organization reaching out to you because of your small, relatively small platform, at least in your eyes. How did you experience that?
I was super chuffed.
I
was like, wow, this is cool. Now I'm like making waves in certain ways, but I can't remember why they contacted me or someone contacted me, but I was humbled as well. I was like, okay, Krishna has kind of provided me some popularity in this way, and I have to use it properly in the sense of not using it for my own self aggrandizement or my own sense gratification, like looking for the likes, looking for the shares, looking for the the popularity or pratishta, all those things.
Right.
But looking at it in a way like I have to do a service, even though I don't see it that so much of that, but this is a service to devotees, to platform correct in my eyes things that can be inspiring to the rest of the devotee community. And also, I mean, it's not a big deal that some devotees, like GBC members, contacted me. Like I feel like sometimes we sensationalize like what that is. Like we kind of like make them into like this like they're like these people who are like overlords or looking over us, like, and like just throwing thunderbolts and like you have to don't say Radha and don't do this and stuff like that. Like it's not like that at all. It's like they're devotees who have been trying for so many years to do their seva, and it may seem so imperfect in some ways. Like they haven't been doing it to our liking and stuff, but I feel like everyone's trying. And yeah, my reaction was that like more of humility, like, wow, thank you for contacting me about that. And it wasn't of something like, oh, I'm so cool and you guys have to contact me, but I'm like this no one, you're like so big and things like that. It wasn't like that. It wasn't really like that. I guess on the inside I try to be humble and
Well, I think I've asked most of my questions. I'm gonna re-ask the last one here a little
Sure.
bit in terms of how
Oh,
do you
for those who are listening, we're still going to take calls because some people have been asking, are we going to still take calls? We are going to still take calls after
this is the last
this.
question, and then
Yeah, after this
I'm
question, we'll take
conscious of
those.
that, so that there are
Sure,
calls
sure,
today.
sure. Yeah.
So, what is the podcast going to look like going into the future? Now that I think you've decided that you will continue this, and maybe you'll embrace it more as a service and less of a hobby and more of a service. So, in the future, 2022, how do you see the podcast going forward and developing? Probably not as many episodes or so rigorously.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'd like to do in person again. In person was so much fun.
Right.
Although remotely really allowed me to bring all kinds of people on from all over the world, but I there was something about in person which I really liked, and it was like a different dynamic than all remote. That's something that I like to do more of. Um, I'd like to really, you know, choose my guests like people and subjects that I'm really excited to hear from. Like, don't settle for something just because you just want to get the numbers up.
Right.
Like really filter everything and think about everything more deeply. Like, okay, I'm really excited to hear about this subject. I'm really excited to hear about this person or from this person, and then do those
Mm.
and kind of like really tighten the screw a little bit, so to say. Like,
Right.
you know, yeah, in that way as well. I'd like to bring my wife on maybe. She's so fantastic in like in speaking, and sh- she our dynamic is really cool too. Like, we can talk. We don't talk over sometimes we talk over each other, but sometimes it's like very back and forth, and she's a great articulator of thoughts and concepts and things. So it'd be really fun to have her. Both of us interviewing one person would be really fun. So I'm not sure how that looks like, but I'd like to do that um, more. And yeah, and just really think about refine my love, as I was saying, refine my love for podcasting because it's waning. It's
Mm.
waned, to be honest.
Is it because of just the sheer number? I know for the last Karuna Avatar and I, when we were doing a Rise podcast, we were cranking them out. Boom, boom, boom. We got to like episode, we were aiming for 52 before the year was over.
Oh,
We
nice.
got to like episode 40. We got to episode 44. And we were like, we got this in the bag. It's all easy. And then it took us another 3 months to crank out the last 8 episodes. It took us so long to do it.
Right.
I was just like, man, maybe our love for this is raining. This is too austere, like that. It was just too much. And but by the end of it, we started to rediscover our appreciation for what it was able to offer to ourselves primarily, and also
Yeah.
to the community. But do you think the sheer numbers of it? Because I was wondering about that, just the sheer.
Yeah, that was a part of it.
Okay.
That was a part of it. Another part of it that I'm thinking now when you're talking is that I put out a certain part of myself for everyone to see,
Mm,
and then I get judged by that a lot. Like,
sure.
something that I hear a lot of devotees say when they see me in person is that, like, Namras is like thrives on controversy. He just loves controversy, loves talking about controversial things.
Right.
I uh, I like talking about philosophical subject matter, and I like talking about issues that we might face as a movement and stuff, but I don't live on controversy.
Yeah.
And the fact that someone thinks that's all who I am
Right.
bothers me a little,
Mm,
but mostly I don't think if you think too much about what other people think about you, then you'll go crazy.
right.
But when it's devotees and it's like devotees you respect and things, and they say that, and it's like it pinches a little. Like,
Of
that's
course.
that's all I am. That's all I am. I'm just someone who thrives on controversy. Like, people don't see the rest of me,
Right.
and um that's like it's probably a false ego thing for sure. Like, I'm so much more than what I put
Right.
out on the podcast, and I want other people to see it and things like it's false ego for sure. So that's something that I was struggling with
Well,
as
it's the nature of the age of the internet because our online persona is like an avatar, which only represents one tiny fragment of ourselves, like a certain way of thinking about things at best. People don't see all the nuances that goes on in your head when you have to write 2 sentences on Facebook. All they see is the 2 sentences, and that's all they get. And then you kind of get the whole of you gets crammed into that 2 sentences or that persona, and then that becomes what you are. And I think it's just one of the challenges of the age. Like, what do you say? What do you do? Unless you're just going to be like completely silent. Soon as you put anything out on the internet, that becomes like who you are. Your profile. You basically are the profile that you put out on the internet. So it's just like one of the challenges of the age.
Definitely. You feel that a lot. Do you feel that at all?
I mean, all the time. I mean, of course, I know the persona I put out is controversial.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm like you that I don't thrive on controversy because I'm a pretty chill guy. Anyone who actually hangs out with me, I'm just happy go lucky. I'm jolly. I don't like being around too much melancholy because I was gonna mess with my jolliness. I'm a jolly guy. But I don't shy away from challenges, whether it's challenges to my own conceptions about things or challenges about anything. And so, but when you put that out there on the internet, then it just looks like more of the same that people are accustomed to encountering on the internet, which is like, the savagery, the unapologetic, this, that, and the other. So it's hard to make a distinction between someone who's like genuinely putting something out there because they think it's important to have a dialectic with that to come to something that's more illuminating and true versus someone who's just putting out there to be savage and to be mean and it's very hard to tell the distinction between that. Yeah. And I guess you have to make a decision on how you want to represent your profile or your avatar on the internet. And
you can't take it back sometimes.
And you can't take it back. Yeah. So I've definitely been called out like you for that. And I guess it's just something you just have to live with.
Yeah.
Or just don't say anything, which is probably the best option, honestly. But I can't.
I've been doing that lately on Instagram, like usually posting so much. And lately I've been really pulling back. Like it's been cool, like not posting anything and just taking the back seat kind of. And just like, but also I miss it sometimes, just sharing my life with people I care about and stuff.
Right.
So
yeah, more stories with the kids. We need that. We're living for
that. Well, yeah, thanks, Jaya Jagannath Prabhu, for the really thoughtful questions.
Jai.
All right, let's open it up. If you want to talk to me and Jaya Jagannath Prabhu on this right now, call that number on your screen, 201-292-4222. Let's see who the first caller is going to be.
Are you only taking call-ins or are there questions on the chat also?
There's some questions on the chat. Let's see. Out appreciation. People telling me to continue. Not really any questions.
Okay.
You're an Ypsilanti?
I am an Ypsilanti.
Nice.
I'm almost scared to say why I came over here.
Omicron Asura?
No, forget Omicron, dude. Omicron needs to be told to get off his lazy butt and do something practical. It was for some other kind of silly reason. I was thinking of coming, and a friend called me with some terrible news that was to come, and I said, "Okay, I'll just take this as an indicator to go."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say what it is because I know people already think I'm incorrigibly infected by conspiracy theories.
Right.
So the friend who sent me something was kind of in that department also.
I see.
I was just like, all right. I was like, you being extra, but I'll just take this as an indicator to go see my friends because I was anyway planning to do that.
All right, here's our first caller. Hare Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
This is Shanta Vigraha from Trinidad and Tobago.
Hey, Shanta Vigraha Prabhu, how are you?
Good. Like, I'm very happy to see you got to episode 100. I know you set out to do that at the beginning of the year. I think it's quite nice you had Jaya Jagannath on.
Thank you so much.
He was there since the first episode. And I've been listening since the first episode. Some of the episodes I've listened like several times. I've
Wow.
listened to Jaya Jagannath's first episode like 5 or 6 times.
Oh my God.
I just listened to
Awesome.
no, because like, and I listened to the one you mentioned as one of your favorite episodes, with Mother Urmila. You know, whether the organization is like like a dance or like that.
Yeah.
I listened to that 2 times this week.
Awesome.
Because I find like one thing I find is that like these conversations are conversations that need to be had. Like when the more we run away from things that are actually happening, like in the world, in the society, we sort of place ourselves into more and more of a box. And I don't think that's what Krishna consciousness is. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like he had this big vision for Krishna consciousness, like judges, with tilak and a very valuable thing that Mother Mila was saying. What if like in 20 years time, like what do you see if ISKCON or Vaishnavism really becomes a world religion? What happens? With the schools, with so many things, and these are real issues that we have to deal with. How does this mesh with our practice? How do we reconcile these things as time goes on? And it was really a breath of fresh air to hear these conversations being had. I know when you started off, like, first episode was with Jaya Jagannath, the second episode was with Venkata Bhatta, and some of the earlier episodes were really like you could see like just two friends sort of hanging out and having nice conversations, like it's different. Like if I could have seen you having those conversations without a mic, without a podcast.
Right.
Just like over some prasad, over some drinks, or whatever the case may be. But like as the podcast grew, like you could have seen that a certain seriousness was naturally coming about. And I think that the podcast grew and it became increasingly relevant, I would say, to things that were generally happening and conversation that people, should have been having or didn't know how to have. And
Right.
I see that, it's quite refreshing. Like I love the fact that you would have some devotees who left and had a crisis of faith and then came back. Like I think
those are good too. Yeah. I forgot about those.
Yes, it was such a diverse, like such a beautiful tapestry that was being woven, like in one way to put it. And I love the fact that like other Vaishnavas would come on and we could hear from them.
Right, without getting banned or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like just like I see like going forward, like in terms of we can't have relationships with other Vaishnavas based on what we hear within our box from our own people. We have to be able to step out and see and to be able to see how this, how does my faith and Srila Prabhupada remain fixed, even though, I speak to other Vaishnavas. Are other Vaishnavas a threat to my faith? Or is it, material society in general that's a bigger threat to my faith in Krishna? Which is it really? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's such a breath of fresh air and like I look forward to what's coming on. And just to add this in, I think Jaya Jagannath being the first guest on your podcast is what launched him into into his podcast stardom on Bodhaka with the Arise podcast. He had to start with you.
I'm glad I was a part of it. Thank you for always being thank you for always being a supportive voice in my life, Shanta Vigraha Prabhu. I always got messages from him always after every episode, almost like, "Hey, that was great," or "This was like this." Get feedback, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for doing that.
Keep it up. It was really nice.
Thanks, Prabhu. Take care. Haribol. Thanks. That was nice. Shanta Vigraha Prabhu from Trinidad.
Yeah.
All right. Who else? Anyone else want to call in? I had another call while he was
Right, I heard.
It's my wife. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
You're live on the podcast, Tulsi.
Hi, Nam. Yes, I just wanted to call to appreciate how much time and effort you put into this podcast. I'm trying not to be emotional, but people don't see the behind the scenes of like how much effort you put in and everything. And I just wanted to say thank you. I know I give you a hard time sometimes, and but really I appreciate what you're doing, and I see how many people it's really affecting. In this day and age, we don't always live near to a temple, and I see people commenting and giving their appreciation who are living far away, but this is the way that they're connecting with the larger ISKCON and Krishna conscious world. So I just wanted to call and say thanks, and I won't pick up more of your time.
Thank you for taking care of the kids while I do this podcast. Thank you so much.
You're
I love
welcome. I love you too. Haribol.
Okay, Haribol. We had another call while she was. Try again if you tried calling. Okay, here we go. All right, Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Hello, this is Harmony again.
Oh, Hare Krishna again.
Yes. So this devotee Jaya Jagannath,
Yes.
I just found out he's in Ypsilanti. Or did he say East Lansing?
No, he's in Ypsilanti.
Oh, does he come to the Detroit Temple sometime?
I'm sure he will at some point.
I would like to talk to him. No. I am so grateful. I'm getting emotional that you can bring up all these topics. You don't know, but there's a lot of devotees, older devotees, that would like to talk about these things, and we can't do it. We can't do it because, once something's voted on or something, you can't bring it up. You can't bring these topics up, and
Right.
It's very, very difficult for a lot of us. We don't all think the same. All of us do not think the same. I appreciate what you're doing, that you're giving platform for devotees like Jadharani, but I can't go around saying I like Jadharani because some other people are going to shut me down. Oh, she's not an ISKCON. I mean, to me, if someone's chanting Hare Krishna, I respect them. And,
Amen.
a lot of us have different ideas and different opinions about different topics. I don't like conflict with other Vaishnavas. I can't handle it. So I have to keep my own opinions about certain controversial subjects inside. But I wasn't a sheep, or I wouldn't have joined. I thought outside the box, and I still do. And a lot of times my opinions, I have to keep inside because they don't mesh with the mainstream. So thank you for giving a voice. And you brought up Prajumya. Prajumya made me a devotee. He opened a temple in Columbus, Ohio, and he was the only one. And he told me to write to Srila Prabhupada. I got a letter from Prabhupada about Jesus Christ because I was a Christian at the time. And, I would really like to contact him again. I haven't really in contact, but he knows me. Irma knows me, and a lot of other devotees. So anyway, thank you so much for thank you.
Thank you again.
Please keep going.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Keshavacharya, Haribol.
Hey, Keshavacharya Prabhu. How's it going?
Whoa.
Good. I love to hear you.
I love to hear you.
Yeah, your uncle.
Yes, you're my uncle. Me, for those of you who don't know, Keshavacharya Prabhu, we're brahmacharis. We're together in the ashram in New York.
I remember.
Yes. I just wanted to inspire you for just what you're doing, and I want to tell you a little story.
Sure.
And that's how I ended up getting to know you in New York. And I remember when I was for many, many years on Sankirtan. And then I decided, I should do more than just going out and distribute books. And I decided, okay, I go into the Bhakti Shastrik. And I went to Mayapur and I did Bhakti Shastrik for 3 months. And it was such an amazing experience. I came back in the temple. I lived in Zurich that time. And I wanted to inspire the other book distributors to, also maybe not just distributing books, sometimes studying these books like I did in Bhakti Shastrik. And then what happened? They all said, nobody's going out with you. You poison everybody. And this was when I understood, something is wrong in the temple, and I became quite fanatic against fanatics.
Right.
And they didn't like that. And so what happened? I had to leave the temple. And it was very heavy for me. I remember it was really hard. And I tried to really, do something for the movement and everything. And I was, anyway, what happened? I went to Radha Desh, and there we had a seminar with wonderful Prabhupada disciples. And I remember at that time I was so heartbroken for months. My mind was crazy because I had to leave the temple. And then in the morning before the seminar started in Radha Desh, these Prabhupada disciples, we were pacing around Tulsi. He came in and he said, "Oh, Keshavacharya, you're here. You're coming again to my teacher training seminar." And he said, "How are you?" And I said, "I really bad. I do really bad." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "They kicked me out of the temple." And then he was thinking a little bit, and then he asked me, "Are you a rebel or are you a revolutionary?"
Oh.
And I was thinking, and I couldn't decide. I said, "I'm both." And then he said really wonderful words to me. He said to me, "That's wonderful. We need such a person in ISKCON." And it was healing for my wound in my heart, and it was very inspiring to. He really just one sentence, and he really actually helped me to understand a little bit my future. And I think I want to inspire you with this. That yes, we need such people.
Thank you so much.
Who are wanna just go deeper and because it's very easy to be extreme. This is our guru's word. You know it. He says it's very easy to be extreme, but it's very difficult to be in the middle. Like you can go extreme to this side or extreme to this side. To really be in the middle, and it needs courage, because if you are in the middle, you get criticized from both sides. This is what I said, and I remember I got also criticized for just chanting Radhe 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 Radhe, and then I remember then I got angry of someone, and I said the same like you. I'm not representing ISKCON. I represent Vaishnava. And I think
we really have to come to this level where we know our family, which is Khan, it's our wonderful family, but this is just part of a bigger family, and I
Yeah.
think I will try to do the same here in Switzerland now, and I know when I do what I do, I will get criticized in the future. I don't mind. I just I, I would love if we are able to live more peaceful together, all these different masks, and appreciate each other.
Yes.
And therefore, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Kishore
Yeah.
Chai Prabhu. So nice to hear from you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
And tell Kamania Masjid, thank you so much for her comments.
oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Hari,
Haribol,
Hari.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Are
you.
you a rebel or revolutionary, Nam?
I don't know. I don't know what I am.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say the same thing Keshava Chai Prabhu said. I think I'm both. We're still live here. Who wants to call in? Call 201-292-4222 if you want to talk to me. The only thing about people calling in is that like sometimes there's like a lull in the, you know what, you professional professional broadcasters have, they like a person in the background who's like got people lined up, you know?
Oh, okay. Right.
I just got this. I'm just on my phone here.
I'm looking up the difference between rebel and revolutionary.
Oh, that's a good idea. Tell us the difference.
Oh, this is the Google dictionary. A rebel is a person who rises in opposition or armed resistance against an established government or ruler. So that's rebel. And revolutionary. Involving or causing a complete or dramatic change. Okay. So both.
Anyone else want to call on? Or should we call it a day? 100 episodes. There were other callers while
Right, I heard.
Keshava Prabhu was. But so how long are you in Ypsilanti for?
It's like,
Or you
let me
put
fill the
everything
space
off?
somehow. Yeah, so yeah, how long are you in Ypsilanti for? I'm coming back on January 2nd.
Okay.
And
Not
then,
very long.
yeah, and then I'll be there for a week. Then I'm going to Puerto Rico with Genevieve for a retreat there.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm going to India.
Going to India?
Yeah, for a month, provided Omicron remains lazy. And that's such a huge problem. If it increases though, then problem may be there.
When is it going to stop? I think we're all waiting for the cavalry to ride in and save us. At least I am. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think anyone's coming.
What do you mean by the cavalry?
Like something's going to happen and everything's going back to normal.
Oh yeah,
I think life has changed.
Yeah,
permanently.
The pain of the situation is because it's a transition, and I think just like in our individual lives, when transition is happening on a collective level, which is very painful, it's very disorienting, it's very hard to find one's footing and grounding. So I feel like we're going through a collective transition, and ostensibly it's like COVID or government overreach, or that's just the ostensible, features of the transition. But there's something else, I think, more metaphysical that's happening on a collective level. And it's disorienting, as transition always is.
What do you mean, like on a metaphysical level?
I mean, we're just making it just a distinction between the physical parts is what we can see, so.
Oh, give it a call. Yeah, 1 second. Hare Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Oh my, this is Krishna Kirtan Das from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
Hello. I'm okay. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful for your show. and I was just I went on YouTube and I saw your live, so I'm like, oh, let's call, see what's going on.
Cool.
But I had something to say. I was
Sure.
gonna mostly appreciate you guys. My wife, she's a computer scientist and Christian consciousness, and she really looks up to you. She watches your Tulsi. She's always super adamant on your guys' Tulsi posts.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I had so is this like a question line too, right?
Yeah, you could say anything. Yeah, just don't say any bad words.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to. Yeah. Thank you. Just like mostly. So, is it okay to like believe in yourself so much that you can maybe like do better than who did it before? Like, you know, with the respect, but like, you know, like it's kind of hard to bring people to a building where sometimes you don't trust them. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what
So
you're saying.
is it okay to kind of make your own? Is it, yeah, without saying it word for word, but is it okay to kind of like build something and, you know, show respect to Srila Prabhupada?
So if I understand what you're saying, like perhaps maybe you feel that maybe your local temple is not the place to bring someone new. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not totally necessary, but like for the internet, like, and also another appreciation, like, you know, I'm an inspiring entrepreneur, and seeing you make your podcast and do all your other kind of like little things, it really inspires me in, you know, creating my own, you know, infrastructure.
Right.
So like, you know, that's where I'm coming from, where as a young entrepreneur that wants to, you know, shake the world like Srila Prabhupada did.
Right. I think it's
So
fine to think
how do you
that
feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's fine to think you can do something better than someone as long as you have certain humility about it, because it takes like the mode of passion to create things.
Sure.
Like you need that motivation, you need that passion, you need that fire to move forward. And I don't necessarily think that you have to think about it like, oh, I'm going to try to do something better than someone else. Like maybe shift the paradigm or shift the narrative a little bit and say, I'm just going to do it how I want to do it, how Krishna inspires me, how Krishna inspires me from within to do something. And that's however it turns out, it turns out. But I'm not going to be attached to, like, don't be attached to what is created or what the results are, but just be like, I'm going to be in it for doing the thing itself. Jaya Jagannath Prabhu, you want to say something more about that?
Yeah.
I you know, my mind is going towards one of the ways that we reach out to like a world of meaning is through creativity. Creativity is how we find meaning for our lives. One of the ways in which we discover meaning for our own lives. And I feel like creating something that's new, at least new for you, and offering that to the world is a way that you can discover the intrinsic meaning for yourself and for your life. And I think that's more important than, you know, doing better than something else. Like, I think if you could produce something that was better than someone else theoretically, but you weren't able to discover the ultimate meaning of that, it would be useless.
Awesome point.
There would be no point in that. So I think the creative impetus of humans ultimately is served when we discover the meaning of the creativity that we're offering to the world. And if you can find that meaning, it can be a very small offering even. It doesn't have to be better than anything. It just has to be able to connect to that world of meaning, and then one will be satisfied by it. So that's kind of how I look at creativity these days, at least.
Very cool answer.
Yeah, that's eye-opening from what I used to see it, I guess. Because I had so much ambition, and I'm like, you know, I just don't appreciate what's going on nowadays. So I'm like, just do my own thing. But, you know, like what you guys said, just, you know, humility and not trying to make, like, you know, just do it and see how it goes, right? Don't be attached.
Totally. And you know, trust in your intuition as well. Just trust in yourself, because Krishna is in everyone's heart, inspiring us from within to do certain things. And if you have like a like really think about what your motivations are. Like, what's your motivation for doing certain things? Is it to be, you know, do you have a good motivation, or is it bad motivation? You have to retweak, you have to rethink it, then rethink it, and then do it, you know?
Really. Because I'm pretty new at all this, and it's like so overwhelming, but, you know, just step by step, I'll figure it out, I guess.
Totally.
And I just want to mostly show appreciation to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for, and then like last year you came out with a podcast with, I think, Nakula Das. and that was huge.
Yeah, it was
about the whole semen retention and all that stuff.
awesome.
So thank you so much, you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Krishna. Haribo. Take care. Haribo. All right. Do we have any other callers? Sorry to keep you on here, Jaya Jagannath Prabhu.
I'm happy. I'm looking at your beautiful face, your beautiful moonlight face. Inspiration. I continue my little spat about transition.
Oh yeah. Tell. Sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, go.
No, I'm not cutting off. We were waiting for questions. We're filling space here as such. But
Yeah.
I'm saying, I was just saying, on an individual level, we go through transitions in our life, like transition periods. Like from adolescence to adulthood, let's say from adulthood to old age, for example. And the threshold between one period and another is usually tumultuous. It's very disoriented. It's very bewildering, very anxiety driven. And I think we've all experienced, we've at least experienced adolescence to adulthood. I mean, our adolescence may be protracted just because of the age. But, at least you've stepped into adulthood. You have a wife, you have kids. And the whole transition period is very challenging. I remember when you first got married, and you shared some challenges with me once in Davin, So that, just as that happens on an individual level, I think it happens on a collective level also. When we're going through a transition from one state to another, we're crossing the liminal space, this threshold, which is disorienting, it's bewildering, it's breaking down things. And so you can't find your footing, it's anxiety ridden. So I think what's happening physically is a pandemic, government overreach, and we're usually preoccupied with the externals of things. But I think what's happening underneath that, and that's what I mean by metaphysical, is that we're going through some transition that's happening on a collective level,
Totally.
on a level. And we're just bewildered. We're not able to find our footing. We're anxiety ridden. We're blaming each other, pointing. It's just easy to point the finger at something that's that I'm used to. Okay, I know what that is, and it's your fault. But actually, there's something a lot deeper going on, and maybe we haven't discovered the ways to go through that gracefully or skillfully. And so we just turn on each other or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how I see the situation happening right now. When I think about it philosophically.
Okay, we have someone else here. Hi, Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Haribol Namrata Prabhu, this is Mohan Leela from Chicago.
Mohan Leela Prabhu, how are you? So nice to hear from you.
Good, Prabhu, how are you?
I'm fine.
So, Prabhu, I've always asked you, you should do a podcast on your life story, and thank you for sharing your heart through this particular podcast.
Thank you.
So, my question for you is, whenever you introduce people how they came to Krishna consciousness, it's always great to hear that story. You were pretty much born in the movement. You grew up in the movement. The part that I'd like to hear about is, what inspired you? I mean, I see a lot of people who are born in the movement. Some people stay, some people continue, some people don't continue. What I would like to hear your inner journey is, what kept you going, and what in essence, how did you relive, take rebirth in the movement and stuff like that. I want to hear that side of the story.
Sure. In a nutshell, I would say I definitely did have a rebirth. I had a crisis of faith. The Dark Night of the Soul. Sundar Gopal Prabhu's amazing book, Simon Haas's book, Dark Night of the Soul. You got to check that out. Amazing book. Anyway, I had a crisis of faith when I might have been in my early 20s. Yeah, something like that, or late teens or something. That I didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to fit into Krishna consciousness. I didn't know what it was really about. It was up till then, it was very superficial. I was just following the culture of Krishna consciousness. Then I decided, I've always had an attraction to Vrindavan, so I decided to go with a couple of friends to do Bhakti Shastri. Someone told me, why don't you just actually study this philosophy and see how you feel about it after that? Mm-hmm. So then I studied and I did Bhakti Shastri in Vrindavan. And after that, I had a real change in my life. I felt Srila Prabhupada's presence in my life, speaking to me through the books and convincing me of the philosophy, that this is something you have to dedicate your life to. This is something that this is your lifestyle. You should do this. And so I was convinced. And after that, to make a long story short, I decided to join the ashram for a number of years. I lived in the ashram in New York, and other places, Vrindavan, a 24-hour kirtan. And it really solidified my resolve in following the process and continuing the process and making the process a big part of my life. So I would say that I definitely did take a rebirth, and I had to really find it for myself. You have to really find Krishna consciousness. For those who are listening who are born devotees, you have to find it, because it's given to you from a very birth, from very young age. But then you have to find it yourself. Where do you fit in? Where does it fit into your life? And sometimes devotees don't find that until later on in life, when there's a crisis situation which forces you to have that, thought, or have that that process take up that process of refining it. What would you say, Jai Jagannath Prabhu? Have you had any experiences of that?
Yeah, I like your point about crisis. We just had you had Bhakti Vigan Goswami on recently.
Yeah.
And he did something with our online Bhagavatam group about crises on the path towards, prema. And he pointed out that the word crisis, actually, the etymology of the word refers to like a decision that needs to be made.
Right.
So although the word crisis strikes as like, oh, this is something bad. No, it just means it's a point where a particular decision has to be made.
Yeah.
And the decision made at the crisis point is going to determine the energy for so many years. Like the implication of the choice you make at that point will be critical in the forward march. So
Yeah.
crises seem to be a very important part of the process of really evolving as a person, as a spiritualist. And so it sounds like you had a wonderful crisis point, and you made a pretty good decision.
And Mohan Leela Prabhu, I think about this a lot, because like you, I have two little boys, and I think about them a lot. What are they going to do when they get older? They're going to have to think about. So what I look at in my own life was that I look back on some scars that I had in my life that led me to that crisis point, and then beyond the crisis point, looking back, like, oh my goodness, I had all these amazing samskars of Krishna consciousness in my life that bring me back to such amazing memories. That this is your life. This is what you were born for. This is what you have to, dedicate yourself to, because it's what it's where the happiest times in your life were. So to create that atmosphere is something that I personally would am trying to do with my kids. That okay, they are going to go through crisis in their life for sure. Living in America and being able to choose for themselves is a messy thing. It's going to be messy for sure. And to be there for them when they not come back, but sometimes people don't have that experience, but I would think that most people do, that they have to rediscover it in some way. Or what do you think about that? Are you still there?
Thank you, Prabhu. I think this
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I think it's amazing that you were able to discover that and reinforce the same samskaras that were given to you. That's amazing. Now, as a follow-up question,
Sure.
What would your message be to the youth? Because, the next generation, because, like you said, they experience some great things in Krishna consciousness, and they may also experience some hurt feelings here and there. And what would be your message to overcome those hurt feelings and still, try to focus on the great experiences that they had?
I think to associate with relevant and progressive and open-minded, broad-minded devotees that can inspire them throughout their lives is just so important, because that's what I look back on. For me was the devotees that I associated with played such a large part in my rebirth, so to say, that I always looked back on. There was never any judgment from them. There was never like, you're bad, or what you're doing is bad, or things like that. But that there was always love. There was so much love from from those devotees, and also a real deep understanding of Krishna consciousness to be able to deal with certain questions. Sometimes devotees give questions. Some kids ask questions that devotees can't answer, parents can't answer. So to find where we can get those answers from to keep Krishna consciousness relevant, to keep it exciting, to keep it, I think, mostly relevant, because it can seem so irrelevant sometimes, or can seem something that's, oh, that my parents do, that's old fashioned or something. No, it's so relevant to our lives, and to create an atmosphere of where there are relevant devotees, kids their age. I think that helped me a lot to overcome. I mean, I'm struggling with it now. To be brutally honest, I'm struggling with it now. I'm having another kind of crisis of not faith, but a life situation. Just
Right.
like, where do I fit in as a parent? Where do me and my wife fit in as my kids fit in as a family into this movement? Do we fit in here? Do we fit in somewhere else? So that's something I'm going through right now that I'm thinking about. So I think it's like Jai Jagannath Prabhu was saying, like, it's like a recalibration. He wasn't saying that, but a recalibration of like life cycles. It's continually going on. You continually have to recalibrate it.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you for sharing that, your inner journey. And Jai Jagannath Prabhu, thank you so much for your nectarian words every time you speak. We miss you here in Chicago. Thank you so much.
So nice to hear from you, Mohan Leela Prabhu.
Very well.
Haribol. Anyone else? Maybe we take a last call here.
Sure.
Coming up to our 2-hour mark.
Yes. I like your point about just finding the association that inspires you. And
Yeah.
I was thinking of Srimad Bhagavatam Arthanam, Aswadora Sikhisaha, Swajatiya Ashesh Nigde Sadho Sangha Tutovare. I think that's the verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Yes.
So it says the meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam should be tasted, hearing from a Rasika devotee. And Swajatiya, is like of the same family, like-minded. And Shnigde, they're like affectionate. So these like 3 criteria are kind of there. And this is Sadhu Sangha Tatovare, This is association. They have to know the meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So they should be a connoisseur of such, of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But also they have to be, using your language, relevant, Swajatiya. And Shnigda means affectionate. They can be relevant and know the meanings, but if you don't feel the affection from them, you won't feel attached, which is kind of important for hearing. So I really resonate with that, as the sort of qualifier of what it means to have sadhu sangha.
Yeah, I like that verse a lot. I like the like-minded point also, that it's not like someone, of course, someone very advanced is like a really great association, but also someone just a little bit farther than you.
Right.
Just so you can be like relevant and not seem like, oh, it's such a distance away.
Right. Right.
Okay, anyone else before we wrap it up here? I need someone to like take the calls and have people hold.
Well, this is like an experiment.
Yeah, it's kind of an experiment. I didn't really think this out that much. I just know that the phone connects to the computer, to the mixer, and I'm like, okay, I can have people call in. Yeah, that's a good idea. Not knowing, like,
that's kind of brings us back to that naive point. You just
right, totally, totally naive. So, okay, here we go. Hare Krishna, you're on the late morning program. Who's this?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, you can go in another room maybe if there's an echo.
Haribo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. I'm hearing the lag from the computer. Haribo, both of you. Jai Jagannath, Hare Krishna, my obeisances. Thank you so much for, having these wonderful conversations, creating spaces where real topics can be discussed, and the wider devotee community can feel heard and seen and valued. And yeah, my question is, you guys have both had so many different types of guests onto the show, and I was wondering if you could have His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, on the show, what would you want to ask him? What would you want to hear from him today? And could you title the episode?
Cool question. Cool question. Thank you so much. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, Ishpuri Keshavi,
Thank you. And where are you from?
Ottawa, Canada.
Thank you so much for that question. Very fascinating question. I'm gonna throw it to Jay Jagannath right now.
Oh, dude, no way. That's such a. I mean, I'm bewildered.
That's such a
I can
fascinating
tell you the
question.
first thing that came to my head, but it's kind of inappropriate. So I'm trying to think of another one.
Okay, maybe I'll go first then. I would ask him
about the fall of the Jiva.
No, I wouldn't ask. I would ask him what he thinks of what the movement in 2021. What does he think about it? And it would be titled, I don't know, what Prabhupada thinks in 2021 or something. I don't know. But I think my point would be that, like, people throw around like Prabhupada said this and Prabhupada said that, and Prabhupada thinks like this.
Right.
And different of his servants, even who've served him for many years, they can say opposite things. So to hear from him himself maybe really eye-opening. So yeah, I guess that's what I would ask him, if that was even possible. But yeah, to answer your question.
Thank you so much.
What do you think, Jai Jagannath?
Your answer is beautiful. Yeah. I think I have a whole list in my head, actually, and several of them are kind of inappropriate and a little contentious. So I'm going to say the less contentious one, because I don't want to be blamed for always looking for controversy and trying to. I think I would ask. I don't have a title for the show yet, but the episode would be about how we should view other Vaishnavas outside of the ISKCON family.
Oh,
because and yeah, I think I would entitle something like "Healing the Schisms Amongst Gaudiya Sanghas" from Srila Prabhupada or something like that, you know?
Oh, that's cool.
And I would just, because, you know, in Prabhupada's Leela, which is there's two parts of Prabhupada's Leelas that's usually kind of, it's not underscored, at least, and when we hear the glories of Prabhupada. But Prabhupada before he came to America, and Prabhupada at the very end of his Leela. And when you hear about Srila Prabhupada before he came to America, you hear about him living amongst Vaishnavas of different sanghas. They were part of different parivars even, and him having affectionate relationships with them. And, you know, I can't imagine Prabhupada could be living with such devotees and thinking that they were bogus in his head. You know, this doesn't sound like a Vaishnava way of thinking also. And then you have Prabhupada's Leela at the end of his Leela, where he's asking for forgiveness for the things that he has said to these other Vaishnavas or about these other Vaishnava groups, saying that, you know, in my Acharya Leela, I had to, you know, protect my devotees in a particular way. And so I spoke in that way, but seeking like forgiveness. And it's almost like a sense of seeking to be a little bit redeemed in the eyes of these other Vaishnavas. And of course, him being forgiven as such. Now, I know that the tendency would be like, he's the Acharya, he doesn't need to be forgiven. You know, he can do whatever he wants. He's a pure devotee without impunity, but he's also like kind of setting an example for how we might think about things also. At least that's how I kind of take it. So I would want to do an episode about that. You know, hearing about Prabhupada's relations with other Vaishnava groups before coming to America, and, you know, and how we should view them now. Because honestly, I feel like the tension that is there amongst all the sanghas, because as you know, I hop around a little bit. Like I'm fully ISKCON. I love Prabhupada as OG for me, and he always will be. But I appreciate Vaishnavas of other sanghas. I spend time occasionally with Vaishnavas, other Sangha, and I love them too.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine Prabhupada preaching to me that these people are bogus and so on. And so I would want some reconciliation for myself in that particular subject.
Interesting comment from Kamaniya Devi online regarding this particular question. It'd be interesting to hear Srila Prabhupada's opinion on the internet and how devotees use it.
Ooh,
Very true.
together.
So true.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts, Ishwari?
Oh wow! I didn't think you'd spin the question back on me.
Yeah,
I
go
just wanna
for it. Go
say,
for it. We'll end with you.
Well, end with me. Before that, I just want to say I could listen to both of you talk, especially Jaya Jagannath Prabhu, so eloquent, and to go after him, it's like what? But yeah, I guess my question for Srila Prabhupada, if I could interview him today, would be something around, our efforts as a society, the ISKCON society, pleasing him. Are they making him proud? He left and he trained many devotees to carry on the torch, and I'm wondering if from wherever he is, watching the devotees and how Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is expanding and all the development with the new generations, if it's pleasing, if it's making him happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You sound like a properly situated devotee.
Yeah, you do. Great. Thank you so much for calling and that beautiful question.
Thank you guys so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Take care. That was a great question. Great way to end off.
Yeah,
well,
totally.
That's it, folks. That's all we have for the late morning program. I'm going to call it season 1, episode 1 to 100. It's been so fun. It's been so hard. It's been so a growing process for me. And I thank each and every one of my listeners and supporters for their kind words, for your feedback, for your criticism, for everything. It's just been a really nice ride. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to recollect myself, scrape myself off the floor, and see how this will develop in 2022. Jai Jagannath Prabhu, always an amazing supporter, a dear friend. I'm so excited to see how your Arise podcast, Boudica, everything you're doing turns out in 2022. If I can be of any service, please let me know. Always love talking to you.
Likewise.
And, yeah, thank you so much, and thanks everyone again. That's all we have for this year. Take some time for yourself, and we'll see you on the other side. Hare Krishna.
Deuces.
Deuces.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.